what's going on? I hope everyone's doing well. I hope you're having a good day, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching this or listening to this. But I just wanted to take, I want to dedicate this week, or I guess this episode, to basically display and show you guys what it looks like, the Zoom calls that we do on a weekly basis in the mental health group that I've started recently. If you've been interested or you have any questions or you want to just hear about what our weekly conversations sound like and what the daily WhatsApp conversations sound like as well, I just want to share this little conversation from, this week's Zoom call. It starts off with a little story that I tell about my life, and then it goes into a little conversation with the rest of the group. So I just want to give you guys this insight, and if you are interested in joining this group, then please send me a message on Instagram, shoot me a DM. My Instagram is at Mark D. Henriksen. It'll be in the show notes below. It'll be at the bottom of the screen down here. Feel free to reach out to me and let me know. But without further ado, let's jump right into, this conversation that I had with them, and share a little bit of perspective with you guys as well. I hope you guys enjoy this story.
Yeah, we were kind of talking like a little bit about like forgiveness and kind of just talking about, how to kind of forgive. And it's a tough topic for me because I'm not really the best at it. Like I'm like not really, I'm kind of a forgiving person, but I just, I always have a tough time with forgiving or being like a pacifist that way, because I've got a couple different like demeanors for sure, but like my default mode is usually like basically pretty aggressive. Like that's kind of the way that I'm normally. So like for me, if I feel betrayed, if I feel like someone's fucked me over, if I feel like, it's hard for me to kind of forgive people because I feel like I want to get back at them. Like that's kind of, I'm like, every time someone wrongs me, I'm like, I'm going to fucking crush this motherfucker. That's the way I think. I'm not even kidding. That's just the way I think. It just like, either that or I just feel like an absolute zero. Like it's like one of two. Like it's either like I'm going to 110 or I'm going to zero. So like kind of just like that's something I've always kind of struggled with. But yeah, I thought I would just kind of start off telling you guys a couple of stories. The first one's a little bit longer and a little bit more eventful. The second one is a little bit less long, a little bit less eventful. It's a little bit more personal though. So I thought both would be good to kind of share. Let's see. Yes. Okay, nice. I got you guys back. I can see your faces again. That was good. Perfect timing for stalling. I got you back. So, yeah, it's the first story kind of starts off when I moved into the apartment that I'm in right now. So like the first time, I moved. It was like me. It was the first time I was moving out of my parents' place, and this was like 2 years ago, and I'm moving out with like one of my best buddies at the time, and it's like I'm fired up. Like, and this is at like, pretty much like in the middle, like I'd say like 2 years in, and it was 2 years ago. So it's like in the middle of like kind of like a different transformation for me, like just like mentally, physically. I was like in good shape at the time. I was like kind of motoring away, and I was just like in my own lane. Like I was just so focused. So like me being the eager beaver that I am, I'm like, all right, I'm going to pre-move in. So then we get like our move-in date is like November 1st. And then I get all my stuff in there. Like we don't even get the keys till like, it was like a weekend. So we're supposed to move in on the Monday. I get the keys on Friday. And then on Saturday, I moved my bed, my dresser, 3 bags of clothes. And then obviously I bring my TV and my PlayStation. Like that's literally the only things I bring. It's an empty apartment, except there's 2 TVs mounted on the wall. That's the first thing I did at 10 p.m. when I got into the apartment building, was mount my TVs on the wall. So my neighbors were probably stoked about that. And then I was like, fuck yeah, well, I've got my bed. I've got like some groceries for food in the morning. Like I'm pretty much living here already. Like what else do I need? Like this is perfect. So then I'm like, I'm just going to sleep here now, and that's it. I'm moved out. This is perfect. and my buddy will be here in like a couple days. So I'm just gonna warm the place up for him, like it'll be perfect. So I get in, and then the first day I sleep there is like October 31st, right? And I'm like, Halloween? No, fuck Halloween, man. I'm in my zone right now. So I go to bed at like 8 o'clock. I wake up at 4 a.m. I go for a run. I like there's a track right by the place. I come back. I can't even shower yet because I don't have shower curtains or any toiletries. Like I have nothing other than a bed, and that's it, like bed and clothes. So then I'm like, all right, I have to go buy a shower curtain, but Winners isn't open yet. Like I'm like, all right, what can I do? Like it's like 5 in the morning. Like so I'm sitting on my bed and I'm like, I guess I'll just kind of start like putting my clothes away. So I start putting my clothes away, and I don't think I'm being that loud, but like I've got my phone kind of just playing music like on my like bed, and it's like on like literally the first volume. Like when you like zero volume on an iPhone and then you just click the volume up once. So I'm chilling, putting away my clothes, and all of a sudden there's just this bang, 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 bang at my door. And it's like, that's weird. It's 5:30 in the morning. I didn't think anyone else was going to be up. Like, that's kind of cool, but it's an apartment building. So I'm like, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's like a building manager wanting to welcome me. Like, I don't know what this is, but so much to my surprise, it's not. I open the door and it's this tiny little lady, and she like barely speaks English, and she's like, hi, good morning. Like, what do you like? Are you like banging dressers or whatever? And I'm like, oh no, like, I'm sorry. Like, I was just putting away my clothes. Like, sorry. She's like, just scream, like, kind of like gives me the gears, like kind of grinds my gears a bit. And then I'm like, all right, well, like, my bad. Like, I'm my apologies. Like, and she's like, oh no, it's okay. Like, she's kind of an older lady. And I'm like, I can charm this. Like, I'll put the charm on. So then we kind of get along that morning. And, I meet Rose. Like, she's kind of like a nice old lady. She seems like a nice old lady at the time. She's just like, I was like, oh, sorry, I maybe caught her on a bad morning and I shouldn't have been making noise, whatever. So I think nothing of it. And so the next week, so I've got my roommate, I'm chilling, and he kind of has like a lady of the night come over. And I guess they're like moving his furniture around in his room or whatever, making some noise as well. I was fast asleep at the time, but I awake to bang, 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 bang on our door. And I'm like, all right, this should be cool. But I just kind of stay in bed because I'm like, I'm not dealing with this, man. Like, fuck that. And so he has to go in not probably the most presentable form to the door to this lady who's saying like, it's not the time to be moving furniture, like blah, blah, but she's just yelling at him because she's assuming that he's just moving in this time, and gives him like a slice of pizza and then just goes on her way. And we're like, okay, that was weird. And so he eats the pizza and then just goes back to bed, I guess, and then tells me about that in the morning. And I'm like, oh, that's so weird. Like, oof, that's so weird. And then like the same thing kind of happens the next weekend, and she like brings us fruit like mangoes, but then yells at us. And it was just like so bizarre. But I kind of figured, I was like, look, like I don't want this lady complaining to like my building manager or like anything like this, because she's obviously like a little bit nuts. Like she's obviously like not all there, right? So I'm like, look, like here's my phone number. Why don't like, because it's kind of inappropriate for you to come up here and smash on our door all the time in the morning and at night. So here's my phone number. Like, why don't you give me a call if you hear a noise that you don't like, and we'll just do our best to be quiet. Like that seems like the most appropriate solution to this. And then, so that kind of seems like, I'm like, okay, problem solved, good to go. Cause I'll just like, she'll call me and I'll say, yeah, and we'll be good. And then, the next week I get like my building manager calls me. He's like, hey, how's it going? And I'm like, good. What's going on? And he's like, got a noise complaint about you. I said, oh man, that sucks. He's like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing in the morning? And I'm like, oh, well, I work in construction. So I gotta leave at like 6:30. I was working like earlier that time. So I was like leaving at 6 o'clock. And I'm like, I want to get up early and go for a run. Like I'm trying to get in shape and feel good. Like, and he's like, he sees like I'm being honest. So he's like, all right. Like I completely get that. Like it's an apartment building. It's kind of like a shared environment. Like at the end of the day, like you don't like, you know, if you work early, you work early. If you get up early, you get up early. Some people are up late at night. I'm sure that bothers you, but I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I don't mind. Like my neighbors don't really keep me up. I just go to sleep. Like nothing can really keep me up. Like I can fall asleep no matter what. So I'm good. So we think nothing of it. He's kind of like, yeah, she's a little bit nuts anyways. Like I've spoken to this lady a couple times and she used to like leave food out for like birds and squirrels on her balcony. So there used to be like a bunch of like problems with like pests and stuff in the building. And so like he was kind of more sympathetic to me. So then we kind of like yeah, we kind of moved on, and there was just always this kind of literally like once or twice a week we would deal with this. But then like it went from like smashing on the door to like somehow smashing like on her ceiling, which is like our floor. And then we started to get pretty frustrated because like it was like this is brutal. So we used to like do like we would like he was in construction, I was in construction. We would kind of antagonize her a little bit if we heard her in the mornings, like kind of like get up and yell, or like you could sometimes hear her yelling, like she'd like yell on the phone or yell about us to her daughter, and it was just like brutal. So like if we heard that, we would kind of like maybe slam our drawers a bit or like put our work boots on in the house and just kind of walk around the house like, and we would kind of antagonize her a little bit. I definitely have to take credit for that. Like it's not like it was just all her fault. We definitely did give it to her a bit, but it just seems so ridiculous, like that it was just so brutal. And then like I'm sitting there thinking like one time I'm like, dude, like this lady like definitely has no problems in her life. Like she literally just probably sits at home all day, and like the biggest adversity she has to deal with is just like noise from two 26-year-old guys living above her. Like I literally, it got to the point where I like started to kind of feel bad. Like I was like, this is kind of pathetic. Like it's kind of like I like literally feel bad. Like it's kind of stupid. And I know that anyone from the outside looking in would look at this situation as ridiculous because it's just like an all out like war at this point. Like because they were trying to keep us up at night and we were waking up early, and it was just like so brutal. But like I guess so I get another call from my building manager, and he's like, yo, like I've got another noise complaint about this. So I'm like, look, man, like I don't know what I can do, because I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not changing my work schedule, and I'm not going to not work out in the morning because that's like my prime time to work out. So like if you can suggest something that could change this situation, I'm willing to compromise somehow. Like I've tried wearing like socks or slippers around the house, and like I'm not that, like I'm pretty heavy footed, but like, you know, like I'm a pretty quiet guy during the mornings. And he's like, look, man, like at the end of the day, honestly, I see this as a non-issue. Like we're dealing with so many fucking problems in this building, like with people. And I'm like, what's going on, man? He's like, look, like I don't give a fuck about this lady who's just like yelling and being a bitch, because to be 100% honest with you, there's a family on your floor, and their 10-year-old son just like took his own life last week. And I'm like, holy fuck. Because I'm like, how like how the fuck am I sitting here dealing with problems with like some shitty neighbor, and there's this kid that's suffering like two doors down, and now he's gone. Like, and I'd seen the kid many times, so it's like, man, maybe if I had not, like obviously I'm not saying that I had responsibility in that or anything, like I don't hold that on myself or anything, but it's like, you know, there's the possibility maybe if you weren't holding on to that negative energy, you could have had one more positive interaction, whatever, right? But that's just kind of weird hindsight right now. But yeah, it was basically like it just opened my eyes. I'm like, holy shit, dude, this is a non-issue. Like I don't give a fuck about this lady that's screaming at me now. So that was like the first time there's kind of like a wake up call in this story, but it's not over yet. But it was fucking brutal. And I actually that could actually be another beautiful story, because I actually connected with that family as well inadvertently by well, that's another story. I'll tell that another time. But so anyways, he basically says like, look, I don't give a fuck about this bitch. Like, we're dealing with actual issues in this building. And I was like, fuck, man, that's heavy. Like, and we kind of talked, and that's where I got a good relationship with my building manager, is like kind of through that. And then so yeah, after that, hilarity starts to ensue. Like, this is where the story gets kind of like fucked, because so then we get to the point where it just continuously happens, and our building manager is like not doing anything about it. And so this lady's just freaking out, and she feels unheard, and she feels like everyone's against her. And because like she calls me, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck about you anymore. And then she calls, like, she doesn't have my roommate's number, but he won't even open the door for her. And then like our building manager is basically telling her to just shut the fuck up. Like, everyone is just like, so this woman's just like clawing at like, okay, like, who's gonna listen? So then she like gives my number to her landlord. So one day I get a phone call at work, and it's this guy. I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, oh, I'm just like, I'm Rose's landlord, like your downstairs neighbor. And I'm like, look, the long and short of it is, I'm at work right now because I work in construction. Like, that's what I do in the mornings. And before this, I was up getting ready for work. And like, I'm sorry if that's an issue for your tenant, but like, that's the way that my life works. Unless you guys are going to pay my bills, I'm going to keep going to work every single day. That's the way that this is going. Like, and unfortunately, there's nothing I can do to change that. And he basically is like really understanding. And he's like, oh, what the fuck? Okay, I didn't know that that's how the situation was. And I was like, honestly, bro, I would be a little bit cautious, and I would maybe go and check out that suite, because she smashes on the ceiling every single morning. So like, I don't know what that suite looks like right now, but I would go and check on that. And he's like, that's definitely not okay. So then we have another couple fun times, and then we get to like the summer. And then the summer's, I'm vibing in the summer, because the sun's up early. So like, when I'm doing cardio, the sun's up early, I'm vibing. I'm having fun. So it's a beautiful day, June 2nd. It's Teddy's birthday. We're sitting there. I'm getting ready for work. And all of a sudden, there we go at 5:30 in the morning. Bang, bang, bang on the door. I'm like, all right, like, I think I said to my roommate, I'm like, bro, can you deal with it this morning? Like, I'm getting ready. Like, I can't do this. And he's like, no, like, I'm not fucking doing this. I'm like, dude, come on. Like, I deal with her every time. Like, bro, can you please just open the door and tell her to fuck off? Like, please. Like, I'm getting ready and shit. And he's like, nah, man. And I'm like, he's like, I'm not talking to her, dude. Like, I'm done. And I was like, all right. And I probably should have taken a page out of his book, but I was like, all right, like, I'm going to just deal with this, I guess. So I opened the door, and it's like, she's like, what are you doing? Like, blah, 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 blah. And before she can even get like a few words out, I'm like, look, like, it's 5:30 in the morning. My neighbors are trying to sleep, and I'm trying to get ready for work. Like, this is so fucking inappropriate. Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, stop doing this. Like, I don't know what to, just stop. Like, it's been like 8 months. I'm not changing my life. Wear some fucking earplugs or fuck off. Like, that's it. I don't know what to say. Like, I'm getting real heated at the time. And she starts screaming at me. And I'm like, yo, fuck this. I literally say to her, I'm like, I don't need this. I just close my door at her face. But as I close the door, she jams her hand in, and she starts like opening my door. And I'm like, I literally say to her, I'm like, Rose, do not come in my apartment right now. And then she starts banging on the door and screaming, and she's yelling. And I'm like, holy fuck, man, this is so brutal. And I just like literally just close the door. I'm like, this is fucked. And then it stops after like 15, 20 minutes. And I'm like, holy shit, dude, she probably woke up everyone on this floor. Like, there's like probably like all my neighbors around. Like, I'm like, I feel so bad. And then at 6 o'clock, another bang, 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 bang. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then really abruptly it goes bang, 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 bang. RCMP open the fucking door. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I open the door, and there's 4 fucking police officers standing at my door. And I'm like sitting there like, holy shit, what's going on? How can I help you out? Do you guys want some coffee? Or like, they're like, where's the fucking girl? And I'm like, what? They're like, who's in here with you? I'm like, my roommate and my girlfriend. And then they're like, where's your fucking girlfriend? Like, we need to see her right now. And I'm like, what? Like, what did she do? Like, what's going on? Like, I'm like, yo, Teddy, come here. And then she comes out and they're like, oh, like, we came because one of your neighbors called and heard there was like a bunch of smashing and a woman screaming. Like, they thought you were beating the shit out of her. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? This is so brutal. Like, are you kidding me right now? And I'm like, look, boys, like, I don't know what to say to you. Like, I've got email threads. I've got videos of her smashing on my floor. I've got videos of her screaming at me. Like, wait, how much of an alibi do we need? Like, should we go to court right now? Like, let's get a fucking restraining order. Actually, like, I need you guys. Like, that's kind of like how it went. And then they were like, they kind of like understood pretty quick. Like, and Teddy was more pissed than I was. So she kind of gave him her 2 cents. And it's like, it's her birthday.
It was my birthday.
So yeah. So
like,
so she, like, luckily I didn't have to say too much to them because she went off on them. It was just like so fucking funny. And they're like, holy shit. And then, yeah, that was super funny. And then they're like, okay, what the fuck? So then they go down, I guess, to find her, but she had run away. So like, there's like, my building manager called me and said, like, he's like, I have like an email thread of like, the cops are looking for her. Like, where is she? Like, do you know where she went? Like, was she at your place? Is she in your place? Like, there's like this fat email thread. And I'm like, this is literal insanity. Like, do I need to fucking lawyer up? Like, I'm like literally at the point where I'm like, should I get a restraining order? Like, I literally asked multiple people, I'm like, should I get a restraining order? Like, how do I deal with this? Like, there's no way to, like, I've never been equipped to deal with someone like this. Like, I'm like, this is brutal. And like, dude, I literally said so many times, I'm like, this apartment is mint. Like, it's so perfect. I love this apartment so much. And if it wasn't for this fucking crazy old lady, then I'd be fine. Like, it would be perfect. Like, we've got like, yeah, it's mint. So then I'm like pretty much at my boiling point with this woman, right? Like, I'm like, like, it's getting bad. Like, I've got, like I said, like, I've got a tough time forgiving people. My default mode is very aggressive. So the next time I'm sitting there getting ready for work, I hear her bang, bang, banging on the floor. And this time I just, it snapped, something clicked, and it wasn't awesome. And so I go into my room and I just hear bang, bang, bang on my floor. And I, bitch, you want to hear some fucking bang, bang, bang? So I start slamming my fucking foot on the floor. And I'm like, I'm going to fucking give her hell, man. Fuck her. And then I pretty much like, I pretty much like lift my heel up as high as I can and just fucking slam it on my floor. Like, I'm pretty much like, I don't know what my intention was, like to kick the ceiling through to her. Like, I don't know, but I'm like, instantly, I'm like, yo, that didn't feel good. Actually, no, instantly I switched to the other foot and started doing smaller stomps. And then right after that, I thought, yo, this wasn't good. Like, this doesn't feel good. Like, something's off. And so like, I'm like, to Teddy and my roommate, I'm like, yo, like, maybe I overdid it with that. Like, my foot actually really hurts now. Like, and I'm like, fuck, that sucks, man. So then I go to work and I'm like, fuck, I can barely walk. Like, my foot's really fucking killing me, man. Like, I'm just like, and I'm not really one to like, I'm usually like one of those people that's gonna just like soldier on through the pain, right? So I'm like, fuck it, yo, I'm gonna just keep going. And so I just keep working another week, and my foot's still just fucking killing me every single day. I'm like doubling up on socks, tripling up on socks. I'm like taping fucking socks to the bottom of my feet to try and make like a pad. I buy insoles. I'm like wearing different shoes. I'm like, dude, something's fucked. Like, so I don't know what it is. And I'm like, fuck, maybe like I'll just go and get an x-ray. So I go to the hospital and then I sit there for like 4 hours. I get hungry and I leave. And then I work for another week and I'm like, all right, this is brutal. So like I call like a walk-in clinic and I have like a virtual walk-in appointment. And then I go in and they're like, yeah, you should get some x-rays. So then I get some x-rays and then they're like, yeah, dude, your heel's fractured. And I'm like, what the fuck? And so they're like, yeah, dude, you need to go to the hospital. Like, what have you been doing? And I'm like, oh, I've just been working. Like, I've just been walking around on it. They're like, did you tear your Achilles? And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, man. Like, I just thought my foot hurt. So I go into the hospital and they do like a 3D, like CT, I don't know, the CT scan or whatever. And he's like, yeah, dude, your heel's like fractured, like right up the back. And he's like, I can't, like, what the fuck? Like, you walked on this? Like, you pretty, like, fucked yourself. Like, and it was like shitty, dude. Like, I had to go, like, I went to Miles and Mel's wedding on crutches. I had to go to their fucking, like, I literally spent the summer using a fucking cane. Yeah, look at that kingpin right there. Yeah, I had to go on crutches, man. I ditched the crutch for some photos, but so yeah, I fucking destroyed my heel, and it sucked, and it was brutal. And then essentially, I had to take it ended up I had to take like 5 weeks off work after that because I had fucked it so bad, and then it was just shitty, and I was just like at a really low point because I'm like, fuck, man. I'm pissed at her for starters because I'm like, fuck this bitch, man. Like, she just makes me so mad. And then I'm pissed at myself because I'm like, well, dude, like, it's natural to get mad. Everyone gets mad, but you just fucking, like, I kind of like, sure, it was like my self-talk was like, what, you're a fucking child when you get mad. Like, you just have these outrages. Like, and so like, I was like pissed at myself. Like, I was like, fuck, man, I just literally, like, this is the purest form of self-sabotage.
Tantrums.
Yeah. And it was the purest form of self-sabotage. Like, I literally fucked myself because it's not like she was hurt by that. Like, she was probably just like, whatever. And just like kept because it's like her regular life. Like, she had no problem just smashing on my shit all the time. So it was kind of like, yeah, I'm like, fuck, like, I'm like, how do I fix this? Like, what the fuck? That's kind of where I was at. I was like, how do I fix this? Because like, it was like kind of a pivotal moment for me because I'm like, dude, like, I don't even want her to know where I'm at because like, she'd probably be happy to see that I'm like hurting, and she's probably happy that I'm not getting up for runs in the morning right now. And I was like, fuck, man, like I literally fucked myself. And that's kind of like, it like opened my eyes to like, that's what happens when you react emotionally, or when you hold on to anger, when you hold on to resentment, when you hold on to things like that. And that was like kind of one of the very first times, literally like 26 years into my life, where I was like forced to forgive someone. Like, I was forced to kind of like, it was like, look, like, if you don't forgive this, if you can't even learn to forgive yourself, like, you're just going to keep reacting this way. And like, I was one of those fucking idiot guys who was like putting his hand through fucking drywall, growing up. But fortunately, I was like never, I mean, like, I cracked a couple knuckles here and there, but like, it was never anything that took me out. Like, I was just like, whatever, I can keep living my life. This was the first time where like my anger had hurt me physically that much. Like, where I was like, okay, now I have to, like, I'm fucked for like weeks. Like, I literally, every time, like, yeah, it was brutal. It was brutal. Like, little shit. Like, when your foot's fucked, like, getting in the shower sucks. Like, it'd take me like 15 minutes to get in the shower when your foot's fucking, So it really opened my eyes because I was like, man, this person doesn't care. They don't know. They have no perspective on what my life is. And now for 6 weeks, I have to deal with shit because I reacted stupidly because I wanted to put the blame on them. Like, it was like, yeah.
So what ended up happening with this woman? Because obviously do you live in the same place?
Yeah. So that's kind of like the, I'm glad you asked that because that kind of forces me to say like kind of one of the most beautiful things is like, so she like I basically at that point was like, I'm done with like reacting angrily to like these types of people. Like I'm gonna feel my anger, that's fine, but I'm just not gonna channel it that way anymore. Like I'm not fucking doing this. So every time she made a noise, I just went into Zen mode. I'm like, I don't care. She can do whatever she wants. Like it's not bothering me. She can fucking do whatever she wants at this point. Like I'm done. Like I'm putting my headphones on. She can bang away. Like I'll think of it as like cool vibrations in the floor, man. Like whatever, dude. Like waves in the ocean, man. Like whatever. And so she just kind of like slowly dissipated and I guess moved out or left. But she literally, the second, like it was like the universe was like gifting it to me. Like it was like the second I was like, fuck this. I'm not interacting with this energy anymore. She just disappeared. Like literally, like normally, had I had hosted this call 6 months ago, you guys would hear it. Like you'd literally had heard it the whole time. So now she's gone. She's definitely gone. Rose, she's definitely gone. So yeah, it's kind of nice. And you know, it's funny because it's actually, again, another ironic part about the story is like 99% of the time, my roommate was more angry with her than I was. But the difference is like, I've got a lot of patience for most like things that are irritating. But once I get to my boiling point, then it's just game over. Like, I'm a different person. I'm not one of those guys that's like, oh, I see red, bro, and I can kill anybody. Like, it's like, no, I just beat myself up. Like, that's pretty much how it goes. Like, it's like, that's kind of where it goes. Like, but anyways, so this guy, like my roommate as well, who's like literally complained about her all the time. He was so mad about her. He just never did anything as stupid as I did. He moved out. He's like, fuck this. Like, I'm not dealing with this. So I got a new roommate. It's hilarious. Like literally the second I disconnected from that anger, literally everything else fell into place. Like it was like so fucking perfect. It was like, and I don't know, like, I don't know if you guys have like for me, like I probably am not going to be as like I'm trying. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying. Forgiveness is a tough topic for me because I'm just really not like that. Like the only other thing I can think about that's been on my mind is like I don't know if you guys have anything you want to say about that story. I had one more little quick thing I wanted to share, but
I was just going to ask if forgiveness is hard, like in terms of like forgiveness, people talk about it like forgiving other people, but like for me,
Alina, you're cutting out a bit.
Sorry, the internet is so janky here, so it's cutting in and out. But basically, I was just curious, like, is it harder for you guys to forgive other people, or is it harder for you? Is it harder for you to forgive yourself, or like in terms of forgiveness, do you find it easier to like forgive other people?
I never forgive myself. I can always forgive people, or at least give them another chance. I keep the hatchet though. I don't bury the hatchet anymore. I keep it just in case I need it again. But no, we don't forgive ourselves. We don't forgive ourselves. We forgive other people though.
I don't know. I struggle with both ways in different areas, I feel like. Because there's certain things that I forgive myself for where I'm like, I mean, I'm human. I made a mistake. It is what it is. Like sometimes I do have that awareness, but I feel like for certain things, there's like for emotional outbreaks like that, like, cause there's things that are, like, I'm very obnoxious. Like I'll definitely like, and there's no fucking filter. Like I tried installing one. There's nothing in between my brain and my mouth. Like there's literally no space. So for me, like I'll say anything. And sometimes it comes across funny. Sometimes it comes across kind of smart, or, you know, I can trick people into thinking I'm educated. And then sometimes it's just like, man, you should have not opened your mouth. For those things, I don't care. Like that, I can forgive myself instantaneously. I'm like, whatever, I'm human. Like, I think that more good comes from it than bad. So I'm okay with accepting the bad. And that's kind of the way I look at it. But for like emotional outbreaks, or something like if I hurt someone that I love. Those are the two things where I'm like, I can't fucking believe that I would do something like that. Like, it just seems so out of character. And I guess that's what it is, because like me saying obnoxious things is pretty much in character. So that doesn't bother me as much, maybe. But it's like the things that I do where I'm like, that's not a Mark thing to do, man. That's not, those are the times where I'm like, I have a tough time like forgiving myself. Dr. Yaz, what's up? Thanks for raising your hand. I love that. You're muted.
Yeah, you know, she's been writing down stuff as like we've been talking. I'm like, holy cow.
Well, like everything else in life, you get out of it what you put into it.
I'm like, she's literally better than all of us.
Not better.
I was wondering what you were doodling, Yaz.
I have to kind of sort of, if I just sit and stare in the ceiling while I'm listening, it's kind of sort of, I don't feel productive. So this is the next week, and this is kind of sort of, and then the previous one was, because I was in a dark place. The previous one was love is patient and kind. So yeah, that's my inner child. So I need to kind of sort of entertain her. I wanted to say for the forgiveness, it's kind of sort of, I was type of person forgive but not forget, but it cost me also way more in life, because you then hold on the resentment, right? So it's one of those silly moments when you kind of sort of literally, you need to learn to forgive, because otherwise you will end up in a dark place more often. And then until you really either hurt yourself or someone else, like physically hurt them or yourself, you're not gonna learn kind of sort of to release it, because at the end, everything comes with the forgiveness, especially for yourself. So Alina, what you were saying, it's kind of sort of that guilt trip that you had. We all have it kind of sort of, because you feel identity with your country. And I think that as much as we would like to kind of sort of feel identity with our country and be proud of our country, at some point we really need to detach our identities from society, because you're an individual who is functioning in the society. So forgive yourself for feeling guilty leaving. This is not your narrative. Your narrative is to kind of sort of live your life in freedom. And if your freedom means that you need to sit in a plane and leave, that's your narrative, and you have every freaking right to do it. No one is there to judge you. All people who are judging you are the people who do not have balls to do that move, literally. So every time when you feel someone that is putting you on a guilty trip, just ask them to do the same and not give you the lessons. That's what I did when I left the country like 6 years ago. Everyone was kind of sort of, on my ass and kind of sort of, you left your family. That was the main, you left your sick mom and dad. You left everyone. And I was like, yeah, but who is kind of sort of, you can leave as well. But then on the other hand, I had people who kind of sort of congratulate me and kind of sort of, that's brave shit. And then you learn actually that those who are putting you down, it's putting you on a guilty trip, are those who do not have kind of sort of courage to live their, anchor and leave and try better and start from the scratch. So yeah, but I had to learn forgiveness, to forgive myself mostly. That's the hardest part, because I'm easy to forgive everyone else, but not myself. And then I will put myself.
I'm the same way.
But I will put myself in a punish mode in terms of that. Literally, I'm kind of sort of, okay, so you have chosen that. Now you're hurt. Now I'm going to punish you on top of it. And I think that it comes from basically my parents, because that was my parents' narrative towards me and my brother. So if my brother does something wrong, we are both being punished. It's some either to do some choices, or kind of sort of we don't have something that we like, literally. And I can't, it's more coming from my mom than from my dad. My dad was kind of sort of liberal type of thing. It's kind of sort of, if you do school good, you have everything. And I was good in school, so I never had problems with him. But my mom was kind of sort of type of a personality. Like she never put me in the kitchen to cook, even though I wanted to. But then she said, you will have enough years of your life that you will be cooking. But then she will punish me for the stupid shit. Or she will punish me because brother is going to sort of bring some shit from school, or kind of sort of he will do some stupid shit. So there is always, you know, those little patterns that we bring from home. And then I learned to punish myself, because I'm the type of person that you don't need to tell me twice. If you tell me twice, I'm done. I'm not going to do it. Tell me once, I acknowledge it, and I will do it on my own terms. Tell me twice, I'm done. I'm not going to do it. And she never figured it out. And then she kept doing it. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do it now. And I will just ignore her. And then that's kind of because I was type the person that I know what are my choices. Kind of sort of, if they give me what I'm going to do for the week, I'm going to do it. Just don't bug me with it. Like daily, did I do it? And all that stuff. So that's the part that I had to forgive myself. And it's still in progress, actually.
Yeah, and like it's always like like it's like, and this is, I'm laughing right now, but it's like actually something that does trouble me. But it's like, it's kind of funny to say. I'm trying to find the words for it, but I can't. But it's like how do you forgive? Like what's the action? Like I'm always someone that like I need some literal steps. Like I need something to do. Like what do you like?
Something
how are
tangible.
you? Yeah, like what's the step? Do I say a thing? Like do I say something? Do I have to do a thing? Like is there like a practice or a ritual? Like how do I forgive? Like what's the, you know, like it took me so long. I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm still, like I said, like I'm still figuring the words for it. Like I don't know what that is. Like it's like, what do you have to do? Because it's like when you forgive someone else, like you think of it as like a conversation with someone. You're like, oh, I have to say it to this person, but that's not even true. Like they don't have to fucking acknowledge it. So I'm figuring out, man. Teddy, what's up?
Well, I was just gonna say that whole like process of forgiveness, I think is just this big process of like letting go. You don't have to say shit to them if you don't want to. I mean, I know a lot of people want closure. And like I agree with you. Like you don't actually have to say anything to anybody. Like the closure is kind of with yourself. And I didn't feel that way before at all. And I still don't feel that way about certain things that I'm working through, like past resentments that I'm still desperately holding on to. But I think it's just this big process of letting go of all of the resentments that you have towards yourself, towards that person, the guilt that you feel. And I know we've spoken about shame before as well. And I think that I know Mark has said like shame is something that you could like use to like make yourself better. And I think that like for me personally, my process of like letting go of the resentments and letting go of the guilt and the shame and whatnot, it's not until that I'm able to do that, that I can, like what Miles said in the last, I think the last one, you like kill that version of yourself, you kill that part of yourself, and then you can become the better version of yourself. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on forgiveness.
Yo, that is like, you gotta tell Miles that's like the coolest thing he's ever said, because that was actually 3 weeks ago and it's been mentioned every week since then. Aro, it's cracking, man.
Oh man, I've been waiting for my spiel. Yeah, I wanted to talk about ego. Ego, man. I think, I have a massive ego. Well, I try to calm it down, but I can't help but have an ego. So if there's like an altercation, there's something that comes about, I kind of have to win. And I feel like that's how it is for a lot of folks. The ego is you just have to get the final spit at it. You know what I'm saying? And you just have to. So you got to calm that down, man. And forgiveness is about not leading with your emotions. During these hard times, during these last 2 years, you have had so many places where I got so angry and just raging. And I'm like, oh man, if they do this to me, bro, you don't even know. I'll give my life for this, right? And that's not really rational thinking. That's the same thing. That's just my ego talking, right? and then that's just wanting revenge so bad, or wanting the the winning stick of it. So yeah, I think ego, man, it's thinking rationally. It's about thinking about a situation. Think about it, see like, okay, how does it affect you? Because I think there are things in life, bro, like you really do need to go after, like fight back. If they're going after your integrity or divinity, you gotta punch back, bro. Like there's not an option. Like you're a human being. Like people gotta treat you like a human being. But like there's things you have to look at a situation and be like, okay, what did they take away from me, and was it a big deal? And if it wasn't, like maybe you can back off a little bit and be like, hey, my ego doesn't have to win this match. It can be rational thinking, it can be forgiveness, it can be a calm spirit. So you don't have to freaking engage yourself, because when you go through meltdowns, when you go through trauma, when you go through conflicts, bro, it does a number on you. Like there's a reason why soldiers kill themselves, right? So you got to understand that every single time you're out in the field and you're in a conflict with another person, you're doing a number to yourself, man, whether you're winning or not. So that's my little spiel, man. You got to calm the ego down. I got an ego. I got a massive ego. We all have egos. We want to win. We want what's best for ourselves, which is a good thing. But don't go overboard and end up putting yourself in a worse situation. That's my spiel, man.
Dude, I love that. That literally perfectly ties into like the other thing I was gonna say. So I'll get to that in a sec. But bro, that's wicked. I'm glad you said that, man. I'm a big proponent for, I guess, and it's maybe because like I spent like the majority of my early life with negative emotions, but like I'm a big proponent for using your negative emotions in a good way. Like that's kind of like when I hear someone's like, dude, that's why in the group, every time someone's like, yeah, I'm grinding, this is fucking stressful, this sucks, I'm like, good, man, that's wicked, that's good. Like, I like that because that's where I made all my development. So like, I'm partial to like, I'm not going to ever say like, yo, it's all good all the time, or you're fucking perfect, or life's fucking perfect, or like, you should just be happy, be grateful. Because it's like, no, I'm pissed off a lot of the time. Like, that's my default mode. I'm aggressive. Like, that's how I am. Like, even when I'm happy, I'm aggressively happy. You know what I mean? Like, that's how it is.
Yeah.
Like, so like, I'm like, dude, I'm not gonna dull myself. Like that's just who I am, and I'm going to use that to propel me forward. So we'll talk about that, because the other thing I want to talk about is revenge. That's like a cool thing that I'm glad you said
there's
that.
On this topic, there's so much that came up, like shame, bro. I struggle with shame. Like there's moments that I have things I should never said or should never done. I'm like, fuck me, man. I literally, like, when I think about it, I'm literally getting like trauma back to it. I'm like, man, I was such an idiot, but whatever.
Yo, but bro, this is what I was saying, and Mel, I'm gonna get to you in one sec. I see you, but this is what I was saying earlier, bro. This is for you, Hyro, because I'm the exact same, man. Like, you and I are literally the same way. There's nothing in between here and here, man. Like, literally, the thought comes right out, dude. Like, it's like there's nothing in between. There's no filter. There's no like, how do I say this in a way that Mel's gonna like this, or Carolyn's gonna like this, or Yaz gonna like, it's just like, it's coming out the way that it's in my brain. Now, hopefully you can receive that. But bro, I want you to understand this, bro, because it took me a long time to understand this as well. You have to like take what I said earlier very literally. Like, there's more good from that than bad most of the time, because there's a lot of people in this world that won't say true things. So like, if you're gonna say true things all the time, and sometimes that's a fucking shitty thing, or something, like, at least people can see your authentic self. Like, at least people know where you're at. It's like, as long as you're saying truthful things that you actually believe, that are actually going through your brain. Yeah. Like, there's way more good than bad. And like, if it pushes people away, so be it. Like, dude, you see my reaction every time someone in the group pushes away. And dude, every single time they leave the group, they message me one-on-one and they tell me. And I'm like, look, dude, like, it's maybe not the group for you. Like, I'm not going to be the guy that says, yeah, it's all good all the time. Like, I'm sorry, but it may not be the group for you then. Like, bro,
I have a story, but Mel has her hand up.
Let's get to Mel first.
Yeah.
guys. Okay, so I was honestly going to build off of something that Teddy said, so it's a little while ago now, but just kind of the whole letting go thing. So this is more so in regard to forgiving others, not so much forgiving yourself. Forgiving yourself is a little bit different in my opinion, but I think there's a lot of power in being able to let go of something and forgive somebody without them having to acknowledge the wrong they did to you or to someone else. Because that's something that I think, like, as I've grown older and had more experience with this, I've realized it's a lot more freeing, and it can happen a lot faster. So I think I mentioned it in the chat, something that happened in high school. I don't think I mentioned what it was, but it was very traumatizing. It was very, very, very hurtful. And I guess I was able to like move on from it and continue my life, but I never got closure from it. And I realized like way later down the line that I prevented myself from having closure from that situation because the people who were at fault and the people who orchestrated this whole ridiculous situation never admitted to me that what they did was wrong. It was almost like not just what they did was wrong, but they were totally gaslighting me in the situation. And I seriously couldn't find closure and forgiveness in that situation until, like I said, like one of them, it was 2 years later, and one of them, it was 3 years later that I was very happy that they did it, but they actually took it upon themselves to pull me aside. One of them asked me to come over to her house so she could explain herself, basically. And then it did instantly give me closure, but I realized like at that time, I needed them to admit they're wrong in order for me to have that forgiveness. And I guess when I was 16 years old when it happened, and basically 19 years old by the time I actually had closure. And I feel like now, being 26, almost 27 years old, if that situation happened to me again, I do think I have the ability to forgive those people, let go of the situation, and move on, regardless of whether they choose to admit that they were wrong in the situation. And I just think having the ability to do that is very powerful and very freeing, and just being able to acknowledge that you don't need other people to admit that they're wrong. It's like you don't need that justification, that validation. Like you can, I don't know, like find it within yourself and be okay that, they were wrong. They may admit it, they may not, because in a lot of situations, people will stick to their guns and they'll never admit it. Even if they know it deep down, they won't. And if you let that eat you up inside, it's just going to cause you more pain in the long run. So that's something I learned from that situation, and something I feel like I've kind of been able to use moving forward.
Yeah, I love that. Dr. Yaz, what's up?
It's one of those things. No, I'm good. Mel did it like perfect explanation of everything. The only thing that when you move towards a certain age, you learn that people actually do know what they're doing. And then when you got yourself in that loop to asking for the closure, and a sort of, they do know what they're saying and what they're doing. So sometimes it's not even about closure, it's literally of letting go, kind of sort of that situation and everything. So Mel nail it as usual in explanation and the process. And then, as Steady said, it's more of learning to live with what they did to you, that it hurts you, and then learn why it's so painful for you, and just let it go.
Yeah, 100%. Carolyn, what's up? You just absorbing?
Yeah.
How are you, Alina? I haven't heard from you in a while. What are you doing? You just absorbing?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's got such. Is my internet okay right now? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. It's really shoddy here, so it's kind of like glitchy, but yeah, I mean, everyone's got kind of like this internal struggle that they go through with forgiveness, but I find it so much easier to forgive other people. And so like I talked to my counselor a lot about this, and she was just like, why do you struggle offering that same forgiveness like to yourself? But I'm very like logical like you are, Mark, and I look for the tangible things like, okay, like letting go. That seems like a great concept, but like we haven't actually been taught how, like what are the mechanisms, like what is the action plan for that? It seems like this like elusive thing kind of where you're just like, oh, letting go, like, but a huge part of that for me anyways was also like the ego and all of that, but also like acceptance that that's what you did, or that's how you are, or that's the move that you made, and in that moment like just owning that, and having this level of acceptance, like, okay, well maybe I wouldn't necessarily act that way, or maybe that person wouldn't act that way given an opportunity again, but that's how it is, and that kind of acceptance has helped me not only forgive others that didn't want to reconcile, and didn't want to apologize. And again, like everyone said, you can't really wait for that. You can't wait for an apology for forgiveness, because a lot of times you'll be waiting forever. So just, having that acceptance of, either what people did to you or what you kind of have put for yourself. And just kind of, I know it sounds really shitty, but also the less resistance I have to that, the easier it becomes. So like if you create resistance in, beating yourself up too much, like I'm so guilty for this. I would never allow other people to speak to me the way that I sometimes speak to myself, like the external stuff doesn't really faze me. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what you think, who cares, like, but then when it comes to myself, I'm just like my own worst enemy. So that's, when I was talking with my counselor, I was like, how do I cultivate the same kind of forgiveness that I have for other people, like within myself? And she was like, well, treat it like a child. Like you would never, and this is kind of inner child work or whatever, but I don't care what the labels are. But she said, think of it as like if a child overreacted, or if a child got angry or sad or just through this tantrum, you would never, like, hopefully take the same approach that we do with ourselves and like beating them up or being like, that's unacceptable, like, so treating that like in a more gentle way where you're just kind of like, okay, well, like that is obviously something, within myself, and it needs compassion and it needs understanding, and it doesn't need to be shamed or guilted. Like we wouldn't do that to a small child, or even like a puppy, an animal, if they were like behaving badly. You never see people in a socially acceptable way treating an animal or a child the way that we would treat ourselves in that same context of forgiveness. So I found like that was a really helpful, like tangible mechanism, is to visualize, that forgiveness in someone else, because a lot of people, it is easier for them to forgive others than to forgive themselves. We just hold that, very dear, but treating it almost in the same way, but reducing that down to something more vulnerable or something more fragile, like a puppy, or like a child. So I thought that was really, really helpful. And also treating it as a practice. Like you're not going to just switch over and be this fucking loving, forgiving person. Like my mom's a hippie. That's all she preaches, is like this toxic positivity. But like Mark said, like owning your emotions, like, yeah, I'm fucking angry right now. Like that hurt, that sucked, and then naming it, calling it out, and then potentially being able to offer more forgiveness once you do. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. There's And like, I don't know if you guys ever thought of this. This is literally just like kind of something that I've been working on right now, like recently in my own head. But I just like, for some reason, I feel like a lot of the time, and maybe this is like my vanity, like I have a tough time forgiving myself if I think, or if I know, like if I like, you know, and this goes back to like what Hyro and I were talking about. But it's like, if I think, like, say like I have a negative interaction with like somebody here, and then like, you know, it's like fine for me to forgive myself if I'm like, oh yeah, it didn't phase them. But then if like they leave the group and then they have like this interpretation of me, like for like, I'm like, oh, that person thinks of me like this. Like, I don't want that to be the lasting memory of, or like my legacy of like what my, you know, what that person thinks of me, or what their family thinks of me. Like if I know their family, or like, and so like, it just reminds me of, there's this Stoic quote. You guys know I love Stoic quotes, but there's this Stoic quote where Marcus Aurelius says, like, I think he says something like, it's like bestow pardon upon others, but ask not for pardon. And so what he's saying is like, basically like, give forgiveness, but don't ask for it. Like, and what he's saying is, you don't need someone else's forgiveness. Like, you just need your own, like, you need to give forgiveness to them for whatever they did. And then you just need to give forgiveness to yourself. Like, you don't need to ask for forgiveness from anyone. You can have like retribution in your own way. You can make yourself better. You can go, and that's where I want to get to. Let's get a couple more people, and then I'm going to move on. So Teddy, what's up?
I just wanted to touch a little bit on what you just spoke about, like how it affects your reputation or how other people see you. That's probably something that really bothers me. It's totally like a recognition thing. Like, I need acceptance from people outside of myself, and like I don't want people to see me in a bad light or anything like that. So I never want anybody to think that I would hurt them or anything like that. Like, recently something happened where one of Mark's close friends, not really my close friend, but he had blamed me for something that he had done, and I was like ready to fucking kill somebody. I was bawling my eyes out. I was like gonna pop him. And Mark said, promise me that you won't text him. Like, promise me that you won't try to call him. Promise me that after you read all of this conversation and understand what has happened here, like, promise me that you won't try to communicate with him and like blast him for what's going on. And I made the promise, and I'm happy that I did now, but I was really pissed off that I did after learning about all the shit that had happened, because immediately after learning that like somebody was just destroying my reputation to another person, thinking that maybe this person now thought that I would be the type of person to hurt them, or you know, like put anybody in danger in any way, that sucked. I was like, somebody thinks that about me. Like, that sucks, man. I never want anybody to feel that way. So like, me thinking my reputation was like, you know, falling apart to other people was like really shitty and hard. And it took me only a few days, which I'm surprised about. But because I made that promise to not like confront them, I was able to let go of everything so much faster. And although maybe it would have felt good to confront them and be like, hey, you know, maybe you need to look in the mirror, you're a piece of shit for like lying and blaming me for your shit, like that totally sucks. It didn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, I could have done that. Yeah, that might have made me feel good. But since I didn't, it literally doesn't matter. I've been able to go through this whole process and shift in perspective where I'm like, he doesn't need to know. She doesn't need to know. None of the people involved need to know that like I feel this way, I felt that way. And like, if they think that of me, if they think that I'm the type of person to hurt them, put anybody in danger, whatever, like, sucks. That sucks for them. They don't know the real me. Like, at least I know in my heart that I would never do that on purpose. Like, I didn't do that. Like, I don't feel the guilt or whatever that they would try to put on me. And I think that that's really important, is like throughout that process is like, know yourself, like know the truth. Like, if I know that I am not a shitty person. And I can remind myself, because just like Alina was saying, there's so much negative self-talk, right? The only reason why I wanted to confront him so bad and make sure that everybody knew my reputation was fucking outstanding was because I was so insecure. Like, I was like, am I that bad person? Like, I don't want anybody to think I'm not. I just want everybody to think I'm good. So yeah, going through that process of like just not giving a fuck what people think and knowing like who I am in my truth, I think that's really important.
I love that. And like perhaps and this isn't like, this is just like, I know you'll take this well, but perhaps there's something underlying that you need to forgive yourself first for because otherwise why would that feeling, because I'm like that as well. Like my reputation matters. Like I feel like that, but then I'm like, what's actually, why do I care? Like that's kind of more the biggest. And then it was like digging into that, understanding like I was saying with Hyro earlier, like, well, I care about my reputation because I have this subconscious thought that people think I'm obnoxious and I'm loud and I'm going to say things that might hurt their feelings. It's like, oh yeah, that kind of is who I am. So fuck it. I don't care. Like, like, oh, they think these negative things about me. Those are the negative things about me. What am I going to lie to myself? So it's like, I just had to forgive myself for that. Like I had to be to the point where it's like, okay, yeah, I forgive myself. I know that there's more good that comes out of it than bad. Right? Like, so it's like, maybe there's something there behind that. I don't know. Hyro and then Yaz, you guys can just go back to back. I didn't need to call on you, but you guys can just go back to back. I'm going to fill my coffee up again. So I'm going to step out and then I'll tell you guys another little story, but I'll make it quick because I got a jet probably just after 9.
So I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. Like I said, if you are interested in joining this group, if you are, maybe wanting to join a community that's based around mental health, self-development, or anything like that, shoot me a message on Instagram. But other than that, that's all we got for this episode. Thank you so much. Go out and have a good day, a good week, a good month, and a good year for the rest of 2022 or whenever you listen to this. Thank you so much. Much love and peace out.